You know, I want to just speak. Debbie Schroet talks about being the hero of your own story. Debbie Schroet is a hero to this community, and she is a hero to many people in this room. Thank you for the gift that you are. We are so blessed by you. Oh, and so incredibly blessed to bring up my friend Dale Allen Hoffman. But before I comment on Dale Allen Hoffman, you know, there's the woman behind the man, and Loretta is here, who is the silent, beautiful goddess behind everything that he does, and she is always absolutely a beautiful support. Loretta, it is great to have you here as well. I'm going to give you some facts about Dale in a second, but I just want to speak that he is a friend of this community. He's always been there with this community, for this community, bringing a wealth of wisdom, a heart. Beyond that, he just loves what we do here. And so when he comes into the room, it's like a homecoming. It is a coming home of a friend and a beloved brother and family member. Dale Allen Hoffman is an ancient Aramaic wisdom keeper. He is a mystic. He is an energy healer, revealing long-suppressed ancient secrets and healing modalities. He is sharing a living, breathing vision of the original Aramaic Yeshua, which is Jesus. I'm sure you all know that. The breathing vision of Miriam Magdalitha, which is Mary Magdalene. There's a wealth. It pours out of his heart and his mind and his spirit. An energetic alchemy of wisdom from the biblical, Gnostic, and mystery school philosophies as one pure revelation. Dale has published numerous audio and video programs. They decorate my bookshelf and my library right next door. And his first book, Echoes of an Ancient Dream, Aramaic Toning on the Path of Light, rocketed straight to #1 on Hot New Mysticism release spot on Amazon within hours of its release on November 15th, 2015. It's a blessing. Having this man and his consciousness and his wisdom and his heart in this space is a true blessing to Unity North. Will you please welcome Dale Allen Hoffman.
Do you notice that little subtle hitting on my wife thing? I've got I'm just kidding. Like this leg thing going on, this little pinch. Any chiropractors in the room? Sort of a pinched nerve, lower spine. So I come representing the California Surfer Jesus, wearing my Richie Havens dashiki in honor of the upcoming 50th anniversary of the Woodstock Music and Arts Festival. Actually, I'll say this about Richie. Richie was like a second father to me. We lost him a few years ago. He was literally my father from another, okay, I can't, how do you work that in? My father from another son? I don't know. Anywho, so I want to get a couple things out of the way first before I really kick in. One is just to get the information out there, which is that from 2 to 4 p.m. today down in the Peace Chapel, which we haven't seen the new version of, we're going to be offering what's called a sonic immersion circle. If anybody remembers, when we were here back in October of last year, I had this thing called the Paradigm that was up here, this obelisk-looking thing with a crystal that changed colors, and it made these really amazing tonal frequencies. But I was having a power supply issue with it, and the thing was cutting off. I was supposed to use it in the service. It didn't quite work so well. Anyway, that's been, it's been going full-blown now for the last, 9 months, however long that's been. But a couple of days ago, we got this amazing subwoofer. I can't remember. Is it a 1,000-watt, 15-inch subwoofer that it sits on, kind of like a classic Egyptian obelisk? That the best way I can put this is that it puts out tonal frequencies based on the 7 primary energy centers of the human body, which was mistranslated in the Christian teachings as demons. What that word actually means, what I would usually do is like hold a little bowl or something and so that it can't vibrate and strike it with something, and you hear just like. That's what that word demon meant in Aramaic. The word was shiadain. It meant some kind of force or energy that wasn't speaking freely. It wasn't something that comes from outside that has to be cast out, but what it actually says is that he stimulated the movement of her 7 unvoicing energies. Hello. And in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene names those. She called them, the quality of those 7 energies when they're not speaking was darkness, desire, ignorance, the exhilaration of death, the foolish words of the realm, the foolish wisdom of the flesh, and hostility and wrath, which is the quality of the 7 chakras when they're not open. What the paradigm does is it actually stimulates those, but what's going to happen is We've got some amazing music we're going to open with in that gathering, and then we're going to do a little bit with toning, the Aramaic Lord's Prayer, some toning bowls, and then we're going to bring the paradigm in, take a break, and then when everybody comes back, we're going to take you on a journey through the 7 chakras with sound-activated lighting that's going to be like projecting mandalas on the ceiling, and it's this really amazing, quasi-trippy, Woodstocky experience in the cleanest sense. Really amazing. That includes things like humpback whales, didgeridoos, and we're not going to have whales in the Peace Chapel, but humpback whales, dolphins, porpoises, some amazing recordings. And then tomorrow and possibly Tuesday, the last time we actually went into Wednesday, we'll be offering one-on-one private sessions, personal sessions, 60-minute sessions with Paradigm, where we actually wear headphones. And the subwoofer is vibrating the entire table. And the Paradigm actually sits on the massage table, and you lay there and you receive it. And it's the most amazing experience. The headphones entrain you, which means that it links your brain waves and your brain's functionality into a bit of a unison so that everything's functioning in a very, let's just say, holistic manner, and you go on a journey. I remember when Richard had one last year, he said, he was like, I had the very distinct, obvious awareness of a legion of 40 high-energy beings surrounding me in a circle. So, because our peeps come in, your peeps come in, sometimes loved ones that have passed over come in, sometimes ones that haven't come yet come in. Some people have great visions, and some people just, so that's okay too, because you'll still get the experience, you just won't remember it. Anyway, so as the California Surfer Jesus, I come here to tell you this. Let's close our eyes and simply be aware of the rise and the fall of our breathing. Be curious, witness, watch. We're not looking to change it in any way at this point. Just watching our energy body breathe. You notice when you start to look at it, it kind of starts shifting and changing a little just by looking at it. Let's take a big, deep cleansing breath in through the nose. Hold that just a few moments and then out through the mouth. Now very consciously, mindfully open your eyes. I have a rhetorical question for you. Are you breathing or are you being breathed? Just one breath. Anybody feel any kind of a shift just from taking a breath? It's another rhetorical question. You don't have to put your hand up. Everybody's like, is this trick? They're all trick questions with me, by the way, so you have to be careful. I've spent decades working with, the Aramaic Jesus stuff. People ask me a lot of times, what about this? What about that? What about this phrase? What about that phrase? They get hung up on things like John 3:16. You live in the South. You may possibly have noticed that there's a few billboards around these parts that have, Jesus stuff on them. If you may have noticed that it's all in King James English. Verily, verily, I say unto thee. Do you notice that it's flash frozen in English that's like, 500 years, 400 years old, to reference something that's 2,000 years old, and nobody seems to think about that. Do you think he ever said, verily, verily, I say unto thee, you must go and see the new Lion King remake when it comes out next Friday? Do you have any friends that speak like that? If you do, you probably want to kind of wince your way away. Think about that. Do you know what that word verily is in Aramaic? It sounds like this. Amen. Amen. Which is the proper pronunciation of that word that you hear at the end of prayers. Amen. 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 It's amazing how, what that actually means is, from this rooted, fertile earth center may all my actions flow. That's the literal translation of that one. In the middle is the sound iman, which is actually the word for faith in Arabic today, which is kind of like ring around a rosy, that there's this center point that everything flows up through and from. The continual, that wellspring of living water is a good way to put that. You think that's a little different than verily, verily? Maybe. This afternoon, we're going to do some really amazing toning, and I'm going to throw a few words out in Aramaic that you didn't realize what they were. It's really important to understand the vibration of the original teachings, even if you can't necessarily speak the language. So let's look at one of those words right now. What's this? What was this called? Body, right? He calls it a body. No. What did he call this? I heard it. Temple. The temple. This is the temple right here. Temple. This is the temple. This is the temple. What that word means, if you look at it colloquially, that means sanctuary. If you look at it in Aramaic, the word sounds like this. Haikla. Haikla. Sometimes it's pronounced New Jersey style. Haikla. And sometimes it's pronounced, more gentilely. Haikla. But that kla sound at the end means basically a gathering of, but the chaya sound means this. Conscious life energy. Energy. Yet Yeshua said as an example, I come to give you something and give it abundantly. What did he come to give us? Life. He come to give you life. That word life sounds like this. Chaya. I come to give you energy. I come to give you conscious life energy. Not just energy, but energy of awareness, okay? Talking about the billboards in the South, let's look at a couple of them. You look at that. I don't have any PowerPoints of billboards, although that's a good idea for the next time. I used to do a lot of the church sign things, like eternity, smoking or non-smoking. Like a lot of the church signs you see around. I've got like books full of them at home that it's pretty funny. Exposure to the sun, S-O-N, may prevent burning. Oof. There's some really bad ones out there, but they're good too. The one out here just says Dale Allen Hoffman, 11:15, so that's okay. I'll accept that. But one of the things you'll often see is, are you saved? Have you been saved? You know what the word save is in Aramaic? First of all, I'll say saved from what? What are you being saved from exactly? If we really believe in a oneness, if you're one of those people that need to bless your hearts, if you need to protect yourself with a crystalline bubble of white light, what are you really protecting yourself from? Yourself. If you really believe in oneness, I'm not saying there's not evil forces. I'm not saying there isn't dark, malevolent, heavy energy. But what I am saying is it's not out there. It's actually being attracted to you from what's inside of you. It's really about the energy of what's happening in your own temple, completely. The inside and the outside, that's a complete illusion that there is an inside or an outside. The outside is the inside is the outside. Even quantum theory calls it the implicate order and the explicate order. Kind of like, toys. I always have toys. You must understand that. So, and I'll say this, I've done toning circles with children before. You can't bring the toys out in the beginning because you will never get their attention. For the next 45 minutes, it will not happen. They're all, I want to play with it too. And some adults do it too. I can see Richard kind of wants to come up, and you can do it after. But, so that word, you save. You know what the word save is in Aramaic? Chaya. Conscious life energy. Have you received salvation? You know what the word salvation is in Yeshua's language? Chaya. Okay. Have you experienced resurrection? You know what the word resurrection is in Aramaic? Chaya. Why do you think they made so many different words for something that literally means conscious life energy? One of the questions I often ask is, why do you think God is called He? Why do you think the kingdom, which in Aramaic is Molkuta, in Greek Basileia, both feminine terms meaning states of being rather than physical locations, why do you think they're gendered masculine in the Jesus teachings? Why do you think God's called He? Why do you think the feminine kingdom is called kingdom? Because men wrote it. It's actually that simple. Yes. Oh, was that about, were you like, is that what that was exactly? I'm not sure. You think about that, though, and we have these other ideas, too, of, it shows up in 3 different places, which is love the Lord your God with all of your heart, all of your mind, all of your soul, all of your strength. It's in kind of different orders in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Sometimes Jesus is saying it. Sometimes the publican and or the Pharisee is kind of saying it back to him. But love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, strength. I'm going to focus on that word strength. That word in Aramaic sounds like this. Chilak. Strength. What does strength mean? Strength. It would be closer to the word force, but there's 2 ways you can look at force. Okay? One way you can look at force is kind of like that sort of idea of holding on. Either forcing or holding on. I often say to people sometimes think I'm bashing exoteric Christianity. I'm not, usually. Actually, I came from it. That's where I came from, and I was within the praise and worship movement for a while, not teaching, just observing. But one of the people that I can't really say I know per se, that we've spent time with is Stephen Curtis Chapman, this incredible, amazing musician. That even speaking his name, I'm going to cry. But last time I was here talking about Wayne Dyer, and I started crying. I am not crying this time. So, but Stephen is amazing. He actually prayed with Loretta and I 21 years ago before our marriage, a few weeks before. He did a prayer for the marriage. It's still together, so something's right. He's just this amazing person. He's got a song called Hold On to Jesus, and it's a really beautiful song, but yet at the same time, it's the exact opposite of what that really meant, okay? And rather than the force of holding on, hold on to God with everything you've got, there's another aspect to that, which is actually more of a letting go. In Philippians 2:7, it says, Yeshua emptied or poured himself out and became nothing. An 100% absolute release to completely let go so that the force of the conscious life can flow through you. Something much different. Rather than the idea of needing to hold on. If you believe in a oneness, again, what is it that you're holding on to? You. And I say this every time I'm here. In the words of St. Francis of Assisi, he said, what you are looking for is what is looking. What you are looking for is what is looking. Can everybody feel that? Some people are going, huh? Think about that. Feel that through. There's another aspect that comes into play with this for me. First of all is, what are the signs of life? That song, Hold On to Jesus, is the last song on a great album from Stevens called Signs of Life. Came out in, 1994 or 5, something like that. What are the signs? What's the sign of life within you? What is it when you look at a body that in Aramaic, a pagra, a corpse, and there's no sign of life, as opposed to one that there is a sign of life? What's the most obvious sign of life? Breath. What's another one? Heartbeat. Those are both examples of what? Of movement and rest. Of movement and rest. It's not quite so obvious in a rock, maybe. It's obviously a lot more obvious in a child, etc. But in the third beatitude is something that I get asked about a lot. That's the one, blessed are the, anybody know what the third one is? Meek. I get asked this a lot by women who have been beaten down by men over the years. Like, what does that mean, meek? Blessed are the meek. Does that mean what? Doormat, shrink back? I'll show you what meek means. Meek means this. It's a shrinking back. It's not that meek is completely incorrect, but it's just not right. Okay? This is actually what meek means in Aramaic. Or excuse me, what the word is makike. Tu vehun la makike. Tehunu nertun la area. That's what makike means. It actually means an expansion. It means, as an example, closer to the word humility. What's the word humility mean? What is humility? When you see someone who is humble. Loretta and I talk about Richard as the gold standard of a New Thought minister, and I think you all need to applaud him. You said $50, right, for saying that? Okay. So, cash. I only take cash. But, no, seriously, because we travel a lot, and there's not a lot of humility, I'll be honest, sometimes, especially when places get really big and successful like this. Humility, what does that mean? What does that mean? Knowing who and what you are. That's powerful. It comes from the Latin root humus. Humus it's a dip. It's chickpeas, garlic, and sesame. That's hummus. Wait a second. Humus. What's humus? What? Earth. It's the layer of earth that's dark and rich. And it's very porous, so air and water can flow through it. Humus. Humus. Now, let's say that you feel humiliated. What does your physical body want to do when you feel humiliated? Go where? Into the earth. Who does not get lit up by the smell of dark, rich earth? Just go get some dark soil. That's the next church I'm going to open, is we're going to sniff dirt. Think about it, though. Why do you get lit up about it? Because that's what you are. You are dirt. You're dirt, and that's the message today. We learned we're dirt. You are, actually. There's a quote from Father Thomas Berry. Bless his heart. We lost him a few years ago. He said, the earth was once molten lava, and now it is singing opera. And it doesn't say in the second half of that beatitude that you inherit the earth. It actually says in the native Aramaic language of Yeshua that you realize that you are the earth. That means turn back, be, was, already is, or realize. Whew! Now I know this might sound a little bit bizarre. Some of you are used to this. But let's think about that. Just the scent of earth. Smell that in. Sorry if you've got any really earthy people around you at the moment. This is the Woodstock tribute show. So breathe that in and imagine that you're smelling dark, rich earth. You notice anything about that? And let's honor her. Let's honor her. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes again. I love the way Richard put it. Close your outer eyes, open your inner eyes. Put your valuables and your purses along the edges of the aisles so that Loretta has easier access. I am totally kidding. I think. No. What we're going to do is we're going to take a big, deep, cleansing breath. But what we're going to do is we're going to breathe it. If you look at me for a sec, just breathe it through my fluttery, black toenail, sparkly toes. Breathe it in, up from the earth. Breathe it up into your energy body. And hold that in the temple for just a few moments, and then absolute full release, okay? Let's do that just one time. Okay, breathe it up from the earth. Hold it, and out. Let's do that 2 more times. One more big breath up from the earth. It's really easy to forget she's here sometimes, isn't it? Anybody maybe have a feeling in the last couple of years that stuff was moving faster? That you had thoughts in your head that weren't yours? That the old ways you were doing things didn't work anymore? That you were saying things that it happens with us, as parents, of course. Our oldest just had a birthday. She turned 2 10s combined, and she just got married. Our littlest is 8. She just turned 8. I officiated the wedding, which meant I signed the document as an official Dudist priest as one of my ordinations. That's the Church of Latter-day Dude If you don't know what I'm talking about, and yes, that's real. If you ever seen the movie The Big Lebowski, I will not make any other references to that film at this time, but the dude abides, I'll say that. But I did not have to dress in a Batman outfit, which they were originally, I was supposed to dress like Batman for this wedding, and it did not happen. Thank you. Does this sound like Batman to you? I don't think so. But we're going to get back to this, start kind of winding this together. I mentioned that implicate-explicate order. In Sufism, I'll say this, Sufism has thrived as the mystical leg of Islam, but most people don't realize that Sufism was around before Jesus, around before Christianity. And I will say that Sufism, as well as in a lot of ways Rastafarianism, has preserved many of the original Aramaic teachings of Jesus better than Christianity has. Loretta and I saw this interesting bumper sticker on a car the other day that said orthodoxy, keeping the story straight since AD 33. And I'm like, really? You ever studied Christianity at all? You think the story was kept straight for 2,000 years? Really? That's okay. But what I'm saying is in Sufism, they speak of the inside and the outside are one and the same. The inside and the outside. Sort of like that implicate-explicate order of physics. Now I'm going to read from a book. It's called Echoes of an Ancient Dream, which, some guy wrote. There's a few on the table out there. Much like the Sufi idea of inside like the outside, or the self-similar fractal nature of the implicate and explicate order, referred to by theoretical physicist David Bohm, Yeshua spoke of a garment, okay, in the Coptic Gospel of Thomas. He says, when you disrobe without being ashamed, and you take up your garments, and you place them under your feet like little children, and tread on them, then will you see the Son of the Living One, and you will not be afraid. I'll say this about the word afraid. When you hear about in the Old Testament about fear God, that word's tedkul. Cool. What that actually means is not afraid as in scared. Let's put it this way. A woman is going to save her child, and the ball's running down the street, and there's a car doing 55 in a 20-mile-an-hour zone, and the mother goes to save her child. What's that word save? Chaya. Preserve his conscious life energy. To grab him, when does she feel the fear? After. Okay? That's what fear is. But that's not what we do with God. What tedkul means is the energy that floods into her system, not necessarily the physicality of fight or flight or the adrenaline rush, but that which flows into her system that enables her to leap tall buildings in a single bound to save her child. And occasionally you hear of a woman lifting the back of a car with one hand to pull a kid out. You hear about that. That is how we're supposed to relate with the living one. Wide open and firing on all cylinders. Okay? Not fear. It's an awful thing that's been forced down our throats that's literally just a bad translation. So who is the Son of the Living One? You. Or daughter. Unfortunately, a lot of this stuff is written with a he there. It's written with a masculine gender. It is the moment of your realization that your apparent reflection in the ego mirror is in fact not separate from that which is observing it. Both are simply echoes of an ancient dream. And yet what you see in the mirror is not what is real, nor what it is reflecting. What is real is awareness. Again, from St. Francis of Assisi, from Frankie. What you are looking for is what is looking. The prosperity, the essence, the awareness, the light, the life, the consciousness, the fire, the passion, the ecstasy that you seek is your eternal nature. And you are not separate from that, except here. Incidentally, the three Aramaic words that can be translated as skin, gelda, garba, and meshka, can all also be translated as hide. Garba is also a word for bottle, jar, or pitcher, which may bring to mind Yeshua's teachings on how new wine should not be placed into old wineskins lest they burst. That's really good music. Whose phone is that? Yours? It's a nice little, we pause at this moment in our presentation to, that's good music. Oh, it's good. No, I like it. It's good. It sounds like good jazz. That was nice. Thank you. Should not be placed in old wineskins lest they burst. The Aramaic word man means vessel, garment, receptacle, implement, or utensil. The word translated as wineskin is zakeah, which also means bag or container. The primary Aramaic word for garment is nakta, which also means to descend into a valley, likely a reference to the psychic fall of man. Arthur Young referenced this mythic fall of man in his book, The Reflexive Universe, of our descent from light, the inertness of light, into the sort of sureness of matter. Big breath. I'm going to read you a little quote here. Recent developments in physics, quantum physics in particular, when properly understood, provide confirmation for the ancient notion of a fall. We may now show that it is true that in fact a fall occurs for the same process by which light first precipitates or condenses into matter, losing a degree of freedom in exchange for permanence, from everywhereness to now here-ness, a descent from the freedom of light into the inertness of matter. But you still are that light. You're never not that light. If I was holding a candle up and putting my hand against the candle, what is the reflection? It's the light of the candle. The light of the sun was called Ra. I've got this great little necklace here. The light of the moon was called Nu Ra. What's different about moonlight versus sunlight? Moonlight's a reflection of sunlight. Ra wasn't just the light of the sun. Ra was also the light of God. Ra is to Horus in the Egyptian mythology what Christos is to Jesus in the Christian mythology. Did I say Christian mythology? I did. From Joseph Campbell, he said, we continually mistake mythological archetypes or symbols as being references to historical facts. I'll just throw that out there and move on. We are literally conscious beings of nested frequencies. Speaking of the inside and the outside, let's look at a couple quotes and bring this to a close. This is from the Gospel of Thomas. The kingdom is inside of you, which you're used to in Christianity, but here's something you're not used to in Christianity, and it is outside of you. When you come to know yourselves, then you will become known, and you will realize that it is you who are the wellspring of the living one. Funny, Gospel of Thomas is written by who? Thomas. The first thing they'll tell you in seminary is Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were not written by Matthew or Mark or Luke or John. They were actually attributed to people who were well known, basically to convince people to read them. We don't know who wrote any of these things. And I'll say this, the word Thomas, Thomas in Aramaic, Didymus in Greek, actually means mirror, image, or reflection. It doesn't simply mean physical brother or twin. A lot of people think it means that. Speaking of an image in the mirror. When you make the two one, when you make the inside like the outside and the outside like the inside, the above like the below, when you make the male and the female one and the same so that the male not be male, nor the female female. How do you do that? Let go of whatever's happening here. It's okay. You can be curious. Watch it. When you fashion eyes in the place of an eye, a hand in the place of a hand, and a foot in the place of a foot, a likeness in the place of a likeness, then you will enter the kingdom. Let's do it again. Jesus said, why do you wash the outside of the cup? Don't you realize that the one who made the inside is the same who made the outside? You know anybody who's really good at polishing the outside of the cup? Why do you think I wore this dashiki? I don't want you to notice how contaminated the inside is, maybe? No, not necessarily. The disciples said to Jesus, tell us how our end will come. He said, have you discovered then the beginning, that now you look for the end? I think he probably kind of smacked him a little bit. And he said, blessed is the one who takes their place in the beginning. In the beginning, for they will know the end, and they will not taste death. If you're at the head of the line, as an example, Where are you? Where are you if you're at the head of the line? What part of the line? You're at the beginning. Or, think worms, I know. I don't know what other reference to use. Snakes. Or the end. It's a funny thing that when I ask that of people outside of the U.S., they say the beginning or the end is the head. But in America, people just tend to say, oh, well, if you're at the beginning, you're at the head of the line. Because we always want to say the other end's the tail. But the beginning is the end, and the end is the beginning. Let me give you one final reference here. How many lights am I holding? Just one. It's just one light. You see that? Imagine that we sort of pick. Can you see those lights on my face? Let's say we pick one light and say that light is the light of Jesus, and that's the magic one. Forget about all the others. Because, of course, he's the one that's only begotten, right? But the funny thing is, if only begotten, which is the word achedaya in Aramaic, which means the ayah sound at the end of only begotten is the same word, the same sound at the end of heaven. And it means something that has no beginning and no ending. Interesting. Chad is the middle sound in Yechedaya. The chad sound is the word one. So there's a one there. And the first sound is who, but it doesn't mean who as in person. It means who as in highest awareness. One who is conscious of that they are unlimited, one with everything. It's the exact opposite of monogenes in the Greek, which is the only born. Here's the thing. If he's only begotten in the sense that Christianity sold it to you, then that means he also lied to us. How can I say that? Because I guess they forgot that he said, you can do all that I've done and even greater things. Except that. You got to get that on the back of the shirt. You can do all that I have done and even greater things. Except that. Except that one thing. You don't have to do that one thing because you are that one thing. So here's my final quote. If they say to you, where did you come from? Say to them, we came from the light. We came from the light, the place where the light came into being on its own accord and established itself and became manifest, which is a Latin word that means obvious, through their image. If they say to you, is it you? Are you the light? Say, we are its children. We are the elect, or the singular nature of the living one. If they ask you, what is the sign of the living one within you? Say to them, it is movement and rest. So let's bring ourselves back to movement and rest. You got a hand here. Smack yourself a couple times. Make sure you're still awake. And then put it right here. Let's take one beautiful deep breath. Close our eyes. Just breathe into the heart. Breathe that into the energy body. And what you are looking for is literally you. It's you. You are that eternity. Thank you very much for being open. And verily, verily, I say unto thee, Amen. Thank you.
Amen.